Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
Drastic labour shortages have become the number one issue for small businesses across the country in the wake of this COVID pandemic. Opening borders will help, but this problem isn't going away anytime soon. So how else can we grow the workforce? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Alexi Boyd is the CEO of COSBOA, the Council of Small Business Organisations Australia. She's in the process of lobbying the government to change taxation and benefits policies so more people will be encouraged to return to work or to work longer hours. Alexi Boyd starts by explaining the extent of the problem to Jeff Waters.
What we're hearing from our members is that it's peaking. We're just at the top of the curve. It is still a huge problem. What our members tell us is it's still the number one problem is labour shortages. Opening the borders will assist. Enabling international students to work up to 40 hours will help. But what COSBOA is calling for is let's look at the people who want to work more hours. Perhaps there's older Australians who would like to reintegrate into the workforce in a minimal way. Perhaps there's younger Australians who don't want to be taxed at the highest tax rate for their second job. What can we do about that? How can we get the existing workforce who want to work more to be able to do that? What about family tax benefits or pensions? Is there anything constraining people from being able to work more? So we do need to look at different ways of engaging the workforce who want to work. And then, of course, continue to work with agencies that support the long-term unemployed or those who are getting back into the workforce after having been out of the workforce for a while. All of those mechanics still need to work as well. But I think there's some opportunities to look at people who want to work more and remove the restrictions that's stopping them from doing that.
That's pretty large structural and taxation and labour market change. Is that likely to happen, do you think?
Look, we're talking to the government. We're having some good conversations with them about these possibilities, and we're putting it out there because what they've been saying to us is we'd love to see practical and creative suggestions, and then everything's on the table right now. They're very cognizant of the issues that small businesses are facing. There's obviously limited number of levers that they can pull, but they want to have those suggestions coming from small business, coming from COSBOA, to hear what can be done to try and alleviate the pressures in different areas.
And one of the things you're advocating is more senior Australians being let back into the workforce somehow.
I think it's more about enabling those who wish to go back into the workforce. If that's something that they wish to do, I think of my parents and they're in their late 60s. So according to the pension or the retirement age of 65, I think these days many people would be quite comfortable and happy and want to work well into their 70s. I know I'll probably want to work well into my 70s. So let's make sure that any hurdles that are there are removed so that they can do that if they wish.
What sort of hurdles are there?
Well, limitations on how much you're able to earn before you have the pension removed or before you have certain tax implications. It's complex, as our tax system is, but let's look at seeing what we can do to make sure that those people are not disadvantaged should they wish to work more hours.
Mazars is an international audit, tax and advisory firm committed to helping clients confidently build and grow their businesses. To find out how Mazars can support your business, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
You were expressing, and COSBOA was expressing, quite a deal of disquiet over the situation with rapid antigen tests because of the expense for small businesses. What's the situation like now? Is it still a problem?
Well, we're pleased that we've got something determined that says that small businesses can now receive a tax deduction for the rapid antigen tests that they use for business purposes. And that's really what the call out was in the beginning. Let's make sure they are freely available in the community. When we say freely, it means that they're accessible. that a business can choose to use the rapid antigen tests and have them available to them to be able to use them in whichever way they see fit. In some cases, if you think of a beautician, they may choose to use the rapid antigen test when a customer arrives to reassure the customer that they are negative and that the person who's looking after them is also negative. So that's been a tool of trade. In other places, they're freely available to their staff to make sure that at home they can test before coming to work. So I think that what we needed there was some flexibility and availability of the tests so businesses can use them as a tool to mitigate risk. And really that's what businesses have been doing for the last 18 months, is finding as many ways as possible to mitigate risk. They've been making the purchases, they've been installing air filtration systems, screens, at a great cost in some cases, to try and keep their workers and their customers and themselves safe. And this is just an extension of that. Rapid antigen tests were another way that they could mitigate the risk and keep everyone safe in their business.
How would you describe the rollout for small business?
Disappointing in that it hasn't been available broadly in the community when we needed them. Our request was for them to be freely available back in October, and we don't believe that there was enough in the market for them to be able to be utilised as a tool, and that ultimately that affected workers being able to be in the workplace, and it did impact and increase the worker shortages unnecessarily. So perhaps if those rapid antigen tests had been more available within the community and been a tool to be able to use by small businesses, that fewer workers would have been kept away, because we might have been able to test before they came into the workplace and infected others. So it's another tool, and obviously in hindsight, everyone's an expert, but we did say back in October that we saw it as a valuable necessity for being able to do business, particularly through the Christmas period. And the fact that it wasn't available to the broader community in the way that we would have preferred was disappointing.
And until the tax deductibility move, it was quite expensive for small businesses.
It was also expensive because there were so few of them available that, of course, that pushes the price up. You know, we all did economics in school and know the mechanics of supply and demand, and that's essentially what happened to small businesses. There were examples of a hairdresser in Newcastle, for example, who has 14 staff, and within 3 weeks she had paid over $2,000 to be able to regularly, and when I say regularly, it was every 3 days, it wasn't every day, test her staff before they came in so that they to reassure staff, reassure customers, keep everybody safe. And that was a huge expense. Even now, the cost of them is still prohibitive for some very small businesses who may not be able to use them because of the cost prohibition. It just depends how many staff you've got, how regularly it's appropriate for you to test, whether or not you're in an area that has somebody in Western Australia may not see it as such an important tool as, say, someone where there's a lot of cases. So I think that it's still a business by business case, but broadly it is disappointing that those haven't been available and that they've been such an onerous expense to small businesses on top of all the other things that they've done to mitigate risk and keep their customers safe.
That was Alexi Boyd, the CEO of the Council of Small Business Organisations Australia. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.